Good afternoon, it's April Davis, PI. It is Sunday, April 19th, 2026. And wow, do I have a story for you guys. This is a terrific true crime story. It is regarding the disappearance of the Martin family from 1958. Stay tuned. Well, what a story this is. The Martin family from Portland, Oregon, they disappeared on December 7th, 1958. Yeah, just a regular family in Oregon, a man, a wife, 3 daughters. They had a grown son that was living away who was in the Navy. And on December the 6th, Saturday night, 1958, the parents attended a neighborhood Christmas party. The next morning, they all got into the family station wagon, a 1954 Ford four-door station wagon, cream color with red trim, and drove up past the Columbia River up into the Cascade Mountains to go to the Columbia River Gorge so that they could collect Christmas decor. They wanted to make Christmas decorations and wreaths for their home. Big trip. They left late Sunday morning, drove up there, apparently stopped at a local little cafe at the top of the mountain, had a bite to eat when they were done with their foraging, also stopped for gas, and were headed home to Portland, but never actually returned. A couple of days later, when the father had not arrived at work and the girls had not showed up at their respective schools, things got suspicious and a neighbor called the police. Now, the dad was Kenneth Martin, age 54. The mother was Barbara Martin, age 48. The son in the Navy was Don Martin, age 28, living in New York while stationed in the Navy, apparently attending Columbia University Graduate School. The 3 daughters that were still living at home were 14-year-old Barbie, 13-year-old Virginia, and 11-year-old Susan, who went by the name Sue. So Barbie, Virginia, and Sue. And they all went together on this trip, but they never returned. Now, days later, the Sheriff's Department conducted an investigation. They found some tire tracks up near the Columbia River Gorge, thinking that maybe they had, maybe after dark, they had accidentally backed into the river. They weren't really sure. There are several places up there along the way where there are high cliffs. Somebody could have driven off of cliffs. There was no evidence that they had driven off a bridge, but they were never to be seen again. There was no cooperation from the son, apparently. Not that he avoided the police, but he just didn't come home when this happened. And months later, when he did come home, the police asked him, why didn't you come home when they disappeared? And he said that his aunt and uncle told him not to. But yet the aunt and uncle told the police the exact opposite. We always wondered why he never came home. So he was kind of a semi-suspect in the minds of the police in their disappearance. But, they had no car, they had no people, they had nothing to go on other than some possible tire tracks. Well, in about May 1959, two of the youngest girls were found ashore deceased on the Columbia River about 30 miles apart. In fact, a fisherman had seen what he thought were bodies in the water and called the sheriff, but they weren't found until later that week, 30 miles apart. And at least they had, some clues from that, some evidence that apparently the car had gone into the river. It's possible that a barge had struck the car recently that may have shifted something, may have opened one of the doors, possibly the trunk, who knows, the cargo bay. Somehow 2 of the bodies came from beneath the water and, floated down the river and were found. So there was a memorial. I'm assuming that's when the son came home and had his meeting with the police. That son apparently may have had possibly a criminal past. He had been a suspect in a theft at a department store where a gun had gone missing sometime when he was presumably a minor, or possibly before he left home to go into the Navy and serve in the Navy. Something had happened in a department store, something involving a missing gun. I don't know if the case was ever solved at that time. Apparently it wasn't. And then after this family disappeared, it was determined by the sheriff's department up at the top of the Cascade Mountains that there was a stolen car that was recovered. It was from Venice, California. There were 2 ex-cons that were in the area, apparently eating in the same restaurant that the family was seen at for their late lunch. And there was also a weapon that was found underneath a bush in a parking lot that was covered in dried blood. And when they, secured that gun while they were investigating these 2 ex-cons, nothing relating to the disappearance of the Martin family, they found that the serial number matched the gun that had been shoplifted from the department store where the Martin family's son had been a suspect at that time all those years ago. And the police never kept it as evidence. I'm kind of shocked about that, but they just ran the serial number and returned it to the department store, not knowing that that gun may have been used in a recent crime. Not to say that the son was involved. His whereabouts they were accounted for. He was in New York in the Navy at the time that this happened. But funny that they're last seen on a shore on the Washington side of the river, and that's where 2 cons or ex-cons were seen the next day, and they were somehow connected to a stolen car from Venice and a missing weapon that happened to be involved in a theft that may have been involved or may have been committed by a member of the Martin family is found at the scene. That raises a lot of red flags for me. But, all they had was the fact that the family was missing, and, 5-6 months later, the 2 youngest girls, they were recovered from the shoreline and, given a proper memorial. Now, for decades, 2 different sheriff's departments searched for this vehicle and this family with no luck whatsoever. In 2018, a very famous diver named Archer Mayo, who is a specialist in recovering the missing and the deceased from bodies of water, he became involved in this case. He worked this case for years, and in late 2024, he believed that he found the location of the car and was able to get part of a bumper that had a partial license plate number on it. The police believed that this was finally the missing Martin vehicle. And in early 2025, I think it was around the spring of 2025, the sheriff's department actually hired a barge, like a river barge, that had an industrial crane, and they were able to recover some of the vehicle. It wasn't very much. It was just part of the chassis, the axle, I believe the wheels, and a small part of the engine. But the body of the car itself was never able to be retrieved, even with an industrial crane on a barge. That's how deep this was found, like in a 50-foot hole in the river covered in mud and silt and big boulders. There was rebar down there. I think there was some sort of a silver compound that would come out of a pipe, like a drain pipe, from a nearby factory. Like when the girls were found, they found pieces of silver on their bodies, all types of toxins and just mud and trees and rocks, branches, boulders, silt. The car may have been moved by a barge at some point, so it would be almost impossible to recover the entire vehicle. And even with the assistance of the crane and the barge, they were never able to recover the entire car. But at least they recovered enough where, with the assistance of the Ford Motor Company, plus the car badge that the professional diver had located, which you'll see here in the pictures, between those 2 things, they were able to positively identify it as a 1954 Ford station wagon. They believed it was obviously the vehicle that had been, missing since 1958. And that vehicle was not recovered until the spring of 2025. Now, the diver ended up going back at a later time, making, other dives subsequent to finding a part of that car. And he did recover some remains and a few personal items, including a camera case that had Kenneth Martin's name engraved in the case. So at that time, those remains were forwarded to the medical examiner's office, and in April of 2026, almost 68 years later, the missing three family members, the remaining three family members, have been positively identified. Now, the eldest son, he was 28 at the time that this happened. He had since passed in the state of Hawaii in 2004. Apparently, he has some grown children, one of which was contacted, and she didn't want to become involved in this. Another daughter who is interested in assisting with this case, apparently she had no clue that her father was an immediate family member of a family that's been missing from Oregon since 1958. Apparently the son was estranged from the family. We don't know if he was involved, not involved, if maybe some of his friends were involved, but somehow this weapon, this handgun that he was accused of shoplifting, probably before he went to the Navy, even maybe when he was a minor, I'm not sure of the age, but he had been involved in some trouble that was relating to a missing weapon, and that weapon was found, under a bush next to a parking lot where that family was last seen on the Washington shoreline on December 7th, 1958. And now in April 2026, the remaining three family members can be laid to rest. What an incredible story. As a detective, I'm absolutely fascinated with this, and kudos to Mr. Mayo, the diver who made all of this possible. Everybody, you know the routine. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And thank you so much for watching my videos.